Look, I'm very jet lagged. This is just a little disclaimer. I'm very jet lagged and I had to have a tooth pulled out the day before I got on the plane to come here. So this might get weird. I'm just warning you. All right, just before I get started, a question for the room. Where do you get your best creative ideas from?
From you.
If you're not stealing them from other presentations, is there any answers to that question? Where do you get your best creative ideas from?
In the shower.
In the shower?
Yeah.
What sort of ideas would they be?
Clean.
Clean ideas. That's not what's in my mind. Anyone else? Any other ideas? Any other places you get your best creative ideas from? Sorry? Life. Okay. I asked that question to demonstrate something. You know, that silence that just came back at me doesn't surprise me because I think today we've heard so much talk about how content is king and the importance for us to all be creating compelling content for the shows and stations that we work on. Hopefully I can provide some really practical and simple ways to help you create that content. Because throughout my career I found that there's this real myth around creativity, that good ideas somehow pop into the heads of special people in moments of divine intervention. You might have that one person in your radio station that everyone thinks that's the creative guy, and he sort of walks around and he's mysterious and probably does his top button up. You might know who I'm talking about. Anyway, over the next 45 minutes, I hope to prove to you that that myth is complete bullshit. All creative people just have a process, and today I'm going to share my process with you in the hope that it helps you have better ideas more often. So just a little, not only do I get two people to intro me, I'd like to intro myself. I'm the National Executive Producer at Southern Cross Stereo. We have two national radio networks, the Triple M network that my colleague Fitzy talked about earlier, and also the 2-Day network. We have about 80 radio stations that produce around 90 shows, and we talk to over 6 million Australians a week. So my role as the National Executive Producer is to oversee those shows and the producers that put them together every single day. Here's an embarrassing photo of me from 12 years ago. Still had bad hair. But for the last 12 years, I've produced a live radio show of some sort every single day. My favourite part of producing a radio show is the sheer volume of ideas we get to trial every single day. So I put a lot of time into trying to do this as quickly and efficiently as possible. In many ways, I've become a student to creativity. Already had a walkout, that's not a good start. Understanding where creativity comes from is more important now than ever before. Because as we've heard multiple times throughout the conference already this morning, our audience now exists in a world of complete information overload. People cannot possibly consume even the tiniest amount of content that's directed at them every single day. To cut through all that noise, radio needs desperately original ideas. Creativity is the new currency, and our ideas are what sets us apart. And with this explosion of content, we've seen a huge decline in audience from the mainstream channels. Just as this great slide shows, in 1983, the finale of MASH had 125 million viewers. In 1998, the finale of Seinfeld, 84.4 million viewers. And just last year, the finale of Breaking Bad had only 10 million viewers. So what does the creator of Breaking Bad, Terry Gilliam, think of that? He doesn't care. He says, I'm just glad people watch the show, whatever it takes, even piracy, I'm fine with it. The power used to be with the content channels, now the power is with the content generators. In radio, it's not our broadcast frequency which will hold value for our clients, it's the quality of our ideas that are the most valuable thing we have. Most advertisers these days don't want to buy commercial spots anymore. They want to buy content, they want to buy integration, they want to buy into our ideas. So if ideas are our most important asset, we need to be generating these ideas as efficiently as possible. So I've broken my thoughts on idea generation into these three categories. First, simple principles on creativity. Second, habits that guarantee better ideas. And third, building a creative culture. So that's what I'm going to work through now. Okay, so these are my 8 simple principles, which are just the ways that I approach and think about creativity every day in my job. The number one thing I find when I talk to people about creativity is this assumption that some people are just born creative. I want to smash that myth right now. Creativity is a skill that you can learn and get better at, just like any skill. No one's born knowing how to play the guitar. They start shit, they practice, and they get better. And most of the time, the people that practice the most are the best. Coming up with great content ideas is no different. There is no magic. Great ideas are just hard work. Every single thing that you look up to as creative or great was just someone working really hard. So just as we get started, I passionately believe that anyone can have great ideas if they're prepared to do the work. Has anyone here read Austin Kleon's book, Steal Like an Artist? Clearly my friend Torsten has. My second principle on creativity is that there are no truly original ideas. All original ideas are just evolutions or innovations of something that already exists. Creativity is simply just connecting things. Highly recommend you buy Steal Like an Artist and read this guy's book. I've stolen a lot from it, as you can see. I spend most of my life finding and collecting the things that I love and then working out how I can use them. Books, quotes, images, ideas, songs, connections. I'm an ideas hoarder. So here's an example of Steal Like an Artist at work. Everyone here might be part of the 49 million people that saw this YouTube clip. Have you? And nod if you've seen this. If you haven't seen it, it was a massive viral video that the TNT drama channel in Belgium used to launch their new channel. Fantastic clip, all centered around this button in the middle of a quiet square in Belgium, where someone hits it and all this crazy thing happens. Our head of content saw this video when it first went viral, emailed it to our executive program team and said, guys, find our version of this. So we all went away and we started thinking about, okay, what can we rip off from this? How can we steal this idea and use it on one of our radio stations? Our Sydney radio station came up with this idea.
Everything can change. Press of a button.
I've been dreaming about this for weeks.
Parramatta Mall.
Everyone's waiting, look at the line.
Fingers crossed.
So nervous, can feel it coming. Will it be me?
Someone's life
What is it?
will change
This is what we're waiting for.
forever.
What you waiting for?
Push it.
That's the siren!
Something big.
Has happened. I just want to shout it out. I'm so excited. Hi, I'm Joanna from Alfred's Point, and I pushed the button, and it happened. $25,000 cash, and the surprise of my life. Oh my God, craziest moment. People came from everywhere, cameras flashing, and Johnny Bravo, and oh my God, Reese Master came up and sang for me.
Kyle and Jackie O's push the button.
Todayfm.com.au, all the pics and the videos.
I'm just so excited.
Today FM.
Did you get that one, Torsten? So, after I got over wishing that I'd thought of that, the bit that I decided to steal was this idea of, instead of giving away $25,000 on the air, they did it off the station. So they did it, and people interacted with that idea that might never have listened to the radio show. They packaged it and then played it out on air the next day, online and on air at the same time. And that was the thing that I decided to steal, this idea of, what if we didn't have to give the prize away on the air? What if we did it off the air? And so then about a month later, we were given a sales brief to come up with how to give away a new Suzuki car. And so I remembered this idea of, what if we didn't have to give it away on the air? What if we could give it away off the air? And then we came up with this idea, well, instead of giving it away, what would happen if we swapped it? And that's when we came up with this idea. No, this idea.
Whoa. Okay, so here we are. We're actually creeping out in the Suzuki Swift. Nikki and Shannon have just finished their game of netball. They're walking towards the car, and it was Sophie's great idea to scare the crap out of them from within.
That was because it was cold, but it worked out awesome.
And then we're gonna eat her brains.
What's she saying? really close, too close.
There's every known make and model of bumper, steering wheel, tail lights, rear view mirrors, radiators, stereos. What sort of profit are you going to make on this?
I'll probably turn it over for a couple of grand by the end of it.
Mate, you're not meant to tell me that. I'm selling it for 300. Have I ever told you that you've, really meant a lot to me the last few weeks?
Please don't start this in the car.
Just hypothetically, right? If I wasn't married...
I saw people. They're coming.
Are they? How do we...
Oh, no, I don't know if it's them, but I saw a black umbrella.
So what do we do?
I don't know.
I can't see anything.
Wake up! He's coming really
He's squealing. Can you hear that?
Yeah, he's coming really slow. Where? He's coming really slow.
Hang on.
You have just won a brand new Suzuki! This is your brand new car!
How do you feel? I don't know what to say. Oh my God, we just won. And then this is like the best night ever.
So from a viral YouTube video to push the button to swap my car, you can see the power of stealing from other ideas that are already great. So what's happening here? My third principle on creativity is questions are better than ideas. I don't try and get better at having good ideas. I just try and get better at asking the perfect question at the perfect time. When I learnt this as a young producer, it changed my whole life. I realised I didn't have to have all the good ideas. I just needed to be able to try and identify where the good ideas might be hiding. Every good idea I've ever had has simply come from asking, how can we use that? Or is there something we could do with this? And this is really particularly relevant when you're working with on-air talent or working with creative teams, because when you start an idea with a question, everyone in the room feels enrolled and involved in where you end up. So here's an example of, a really simple example of a great idea that came just from asking the right question at the right time. It was in a planning meeting with the Hamish and Andy drive show that I produced. And it occurred to me that we never made any reference or really did anything with the music in the show. It was a comedy show and the music was just there and it happened, and it was kind of 3 minutes where we got to talk about what we were doing next. So in one of the planning meetings I asked, how can we do something different with the music in the show this week? And that started a brainstorm. The first idea we came up with was, well, what if we got a cover band in the studio to play every song in the show acoustically as a cover? And we thought, yeah, that could work, but it might be a bit fatiguing. But it led us to this idea of what if we got well-known artists into the studio to play a 30 to 90 second intro of a song on the playlist, and then we kind of merge that into the original song. Hard thing to understand when I explain it, but we called it Artist versus the Playlist, and it sounded like this.
Ed Sheeran versus every artist on our playlist.
Yes,
this kind of makes me sound like I'm just starting beef with everyone.
Yeah, it does.
Just
makes it sound like you're in Street Fighter or something.
I'll just choose one artist and I'll just put it out there and say your mum. We'll see.
And the artist you've chosen to say your mum to is in fact Taylor Swift at the moment. I Knew You Were Trouble's song. Ed's going to kick it off, and we'll watch out for the point where Taylor Swift takes it away.
1, 2, 3. Once upon a time, a few mistakes ago, I was in your sights. You got me alone. You found me. You found me. You found me. And I guess you didn't care, and I guess I like that. But when I felt hard, you took a step back. Without me, without me, without me. 'Cause I knew you were trouble when you walked in. So shame on me now, flew me to places I've never been. Till you put me down, oh, I knew you were trouble when you walked in. So shame on me now, flew me to places I've never been. the cold hard ground. Oh, oh, trouble, trouble, trouble. Oh, oh, trouble, trouble, trouble.
No apologies, he'll never see you cry. Pretends he doesn't know that he's the reason why you're drowning.
So just a cool, different thing to do with the music in the show. And we do that for a whole hour. And really importantly, when I walked into the planning meeting that day, I didn't have that idea. All I had was the question. So the fourth principle I've got is something I really believe in, and it's the freedom of a tight brief. Get it? Yes, very good. It's a really simple principle on creativity that's probably saved me the most amount of time in my career. I always try and define the problem before I start working on the solution. And the more specific the problem, the easier it is to be creative. I read a great quote the other day: there is no creativity without boundaries. With the team that I work with most closely in Melbourne, I have a rule that we never start any brainstorm with, "We could do anything." I hate that. Much prefer to have a really narrow brief and know what the win is. What are we trying to achieve? Here's an example of that in motion. This came straight from the beautiful mind of Clive Dickens, who you might have seen his presentation earlier. Clive noticed that there was this huge groundswell around the Pharrell Williams song and film clip Happy. The song really seemed to capture the vibe of our radio network as we set about replacing our most successful breakfast show of all time in our biggest market, which is Sydney, which was complicated by the fact that the old breakfast show had just gone across the road to our direct competitors. We all agreed that the song was a perfect fit for the new network we were trying to create, but the moment the idea clicked was when someone asked, "What exactly are we trying to achieve with this?" The answer we all agreed on was, we need to capture people's imagination around who the new show will be ahead of our official announcement. So with that in mind, we created 3 online videos that replicated the Pharrell film clip. Each clip contained one member of the new show with multiple Australian celebrities and some Australian radio veterans. So we released those 3 clips over 3 days, and then in the final clip, we announced who the breakfast show would be via this video.
It might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here, you can take a break. I'm a hot air balloon that could go to space. With the air, like I don't care, baby, by the way. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Bring me down, can't run. Bring me down, your love is too high. Bring me down, can't run. Bring me down, can't run. Bring me down, your love is too high. Bring me down, can't run. Bring me down, I said, because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is. You, hey. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Come on. Bring me down, can't run. Bring me down, your love is too high. Bring me down.
It is better to attend the club than never to love the talk.
So, by having a really well-defined brief, we managed to successfully change the conversation in the press from, "Oh no, their old show's left," to "Who's the new show going to be?" And does anyone here work at Juice FM in Liverpool? Because I think they ripped off the idea as well. Good on them. This principle on creativity is one I quote to talent often. No idea is ever perfect. And I love this quote from Lorne Michaels. The show doesn't go on because it's ready. The show goes on because it's 11 p.m. And which I think is particularly relevant for us in radio. And it's not an excuse for sloppy work, but perfectionism is the enemy of getting it done. And when you get it done, you get better. I'm burning through these because I realise I'm already running out of time. So this principle is a critical part of the creative process that I think often gets forgotten. Pitching an idea is often just as important as having the idea. And storytelling is the best way to pitch your ideas and get people to remember them. Just like creativity, learning the art of selling and enrolling people in your ideas takes practice. I read another quote recently. I'm a bit mad for them. Stories make ideas stick. They change minds and shape us in often subconscious ways. Logic makes you think, but emotion makes you act. So when you've got a great idea, put effort into enrolling everyone into the idea by telling a story. I think we're all guilty in the radio industry of just doing things the way they've always been done before. My 7th principle on creativity is that innovation is often about what you're prepared to let go of. With the digital revolution, we have never had more of an opportunity to do things differently. And that doesn't mean throwing out everything that we know, but it's up to all of us, I think, to challenge the way we do things and find new and better ways. Whether it's promos, planning meetings, contesting, marketing, phone topics, celebrity interviews, it's all open for innovation, and sometimes the first step to innovation is being prepared to let go of the way you've always done it before. Here's a really, really simple example of doing things differently. I was challenged by my boss to find a new way to build launch promos. Like all of us, he was sick of hearing the same old launch promos at the start of the year. So I thought about, what do I usually do when it's January and I've left it to the last minute and I need to make promos to celebrate the show coming back. We usually find the best grabs from the year before, the funniest short moments, and write promos around those grabs. So then I thought, well, what if we didn't write the promos at all? What if we got the fans of the show to write the promos for us? And then I thought, how would we do that? So we ended up getting the talent on the show to tweet to their listeners, hey guys, how would you describe the Dan and Maz show? And we got some hilarious comments that we never would have thought of, and we put them into promos that sounded like this.
Whenever I want the truth about something, I turn to Twitter, which is how I learned everything about the Dan and Maz show. At Nikki_11 says...
Two mates taking the piss out of each other for our amusement.
At James Hart 3 says...
It's MacGyver meets Game of Thrones with less dragons but more complex problems.
And at Samuel_Capo says...
If there is one thing I can say about Dan and Maz, it's that they're on the radio.
Everything lights up, makes you want to shout. The Dan and Maz show, getting you lost on the drive home. Weekdays from 4. Talk about happiness, that's what we're talking about. On the box.
So not only did I manage to get the fans of the show to do my job for me, but then we were able to get those promos and tweet them back as a SoundCloud file to the people who had written them, who thought it was just the coolest thing ever, who then retweeted it to all their fans and followers. So just had this nice kind of viral element to it as well. And it all started with letting go of the way we'd always done it before. And that's something that we try and do with our team all the time. Just stop ourselves when we're in that automatic process of, well, that's just the way we do it, and just try and find a different way. So my final principle on creativity is this idea of fans, not listeners, which is something I've been banging on about for some time now. This simple idea has opened up a whole new world of creativity for me and totally changed how I think about the audience of the shows that I produce. Instead of just seeing their audience as passive listeners, our shows now think of their audiences as fans that experience their content via multiple channels, be it radio show, online videos, a website, Twitter accounts, Facebook pages, podcasts, merchandise, events, and the list goes on. As Clive Dickens in his presentation explained, this meme is just a great example of how powerful just that changing in your thinking of who you're making content for can be. It was made, this meme here was made by one of our young performers as he literally was in his bed on his phone. And he saw these photos doing the rounds, thought of the funny idea, made it, went to bed, woke up in the morning, and the thing had gone bananas. Now, this kid does a breakfast show in a small regional town that has a population of 320,000 people. This piece of content on the day we took this screenshot was 58 million. We then put it on lots of our other Facebook pages and it got up to nearly 100 million people had seen that content. Here's another one from that same show, another really great example. Again, thinking of their audience but beyond listeners to a radio show, saw them make a piece of content that reached 21 million people. And I love this example because if that radio show was solely focused on listeners, even if they managed to get every single person in the town of Gosford to listen to their show, it would be 320,000 people. But because they're focused on fans instead of listeners, they're consistently reaching an audience in the tens of millions of people, which is why we all do this, because we get turned on by big audiences. At least I do. So here's a little recap of my 8 really simple principles around creativity. Number 1, creativity is a skill you can learn. Number 2, steal like an artist, as Torsten has perfected. Number 3, questions are better than ideas. Number 4, the freedom of a tight brief. Put the effort into defining the problem first. Number 5, no idea is perfect. Know when to move on. Number 6, people remember stories. Put the effort into enrolling people when you're pitching your idea and explaining it. Number 7, let go of stuff to find innovation. And number 8, fans, not listeners. So those are the principles that guide my thinking around creativity. Now I want to take you through 3 habits that will guarantee, money back guarantee, you better ideas more often. These are things I practice religiously and slightly obsessively. Number 1, control your environment. Really obvious, but that is an actual photo of the Hamish and Andy office that I came to work one morning and went, oh, for God's sake, we've got to clean up. I would never have a planning meeting in that office. We'd always make the guys go to a room where we could have a brainstorm where we wouldn't be interrupted, and it didn't look like that. How and where you start will determine how and where you finish. That's what I believe anyway. And you may be thinking that don't people need messy spaces? Isn't that what creative people need? Maybe, but for me, the planning meeting was always about making decisions and focus, so I needed to minimise distractions, particularly when you're working with on-air talent that are just constantly distracted by shiny things. So any brainstorm that I try and control things like who's in the room, no spectators, I have to have a whiteboard, I'm obsessive about different colour whiteboard pens, I like to have 3 to 4 people I think is ideal, I need to have someone reading me the brief, don't read anything on email, for me I work better in conversation, and I try and avoid brainstorms on conference calls. Those are just the things that work for me. I'd encourage you to find what works for you and try and control that as much as you can. The second habit is I have a really strict no idea left behind policy. I have a Word document on my desktop, on my laptop, and I add to it every single day with not just my ideas, any ideas. Anything that comes up in any meeting or brainstorm or anything I see goes straight there. A great content director once said to me, the best way to have good ideas is to have lots of ideas. And I really took to that. So with any ideas, I keep them, collate them, review them, rework them constantly. I think too often things just get forgotten and we move on. My third habit is what you consume determines what you create. Stimulus is so important. So the choices that you make around what you consume will have a huge impact on the ideas that you come up with. And the wider variety of your stimulus, the wider variety of your ideas. If you only read the same things or talk to the same people every day, you're limiting the types of ideas that you'll have. So I spend most of my day, as I said earlier, collecting things that I know I'll be able to use one day. It's a quick example of that I'm going to skip because I'm running out of time. So in summary, these are 3 habits that I think will guarantee you, that can guarantee you'll have better ideas more often. Control your environment, no idea left behind, and what you consume determines what you create. So finally, I just want to talk about the importance of building a creative culture at your radio stations. The culture of a workplace or a team will have the biggest influence on the ideas that will foster within that team. Fear is the kryptonite of creativity, and for most people that fear is simply looking stupid. If you can remove that fear from your team, you will receive greater ideas in your inbox. The contradiction here is all original ideas must have some element of uncertainty. It's always going to be safer and easier to do something the way it's always been done before. Every great idea I've ever had, I've completely panicked and doubted myself at some point. I've thought, this might not work and I'm going to look like a dickhead. Every time, including this presentation. But I've learned that when you embrace that vulnerability, you put yourself in the box seat for innovative thinking. Some of the most creative and successful people I know have simply normalised discomfort. For some of you who were in Fitzy's presentation about Triple M an hour or so ago, I mean, you know, he took a huge gamble on that, and it could have failed spectacularly, but it didn't. The opportunity is for us to create a culture where people are rewarded for making themselves vulnerable by taking risks and trying new things. So in summary, the digital revolution that we're living through right now has completely changed all media forever, which seems to be the constant theme of this conference. But the opportunity that comes with that change is that great creativity and ideas are now more valuable than ever before. And in the radio industry, we have the privilege of making and broadcasting and integrating advertisers into more ideas than any other media. So rather than just hoping for a good idea to strike, the best way to have great ideas is to invest in strong creative principles, build good habits around the chasing of ideas, and develop a culture that rewards and welcomes creativity. Thank you, and any questions? Sure.
Not sure if we have a mic in the room. So this is the bit where you get to ask questions of Sam. So if you want to raise your hand, anybody with a question.
I have a question for you, Sam.
Oh, hi, Michael.
I can ask you on the way home, but I'll ask you now. Is any idea a good idea?
No. I've had some shit ideas. But I think, you know, you've got to have a lot of bad ideas sometimes to get to the good ideas. There's a difference between bad ideas and bad ideas that you're scared to share. Like, I think ideally you have a culture where people can say something stupid and they're not made to fear that. Because sometimes you've got to get through. I think I've forgotten his name, the producer who works on Chris Evans' show, talking about that, you know, the third idea is when you start to get to the goal. I agree with that. But you've got to get through the first two first.
Any other questions? Just raise your hand. They've all just come to steal your ideas.
Yeah, I know.
Actually, I have a question
Yes.
for you. Just some of the VTs that you show, the promos and the YouTube, they look really expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, not everybody will have the kind of budget that you have. Do you think there's...
Do you know what? They're not. I mean, we're really blessed with our resources, but we've just spent 3 years investing in just doing it well. Like, I think it doesn't often take that much more time. I think that sometimes because we're radio, we think we can get away with shitty production values, but we don't, you know, that's not how we treat the content that's on our radio station. So I'm not sure why, you know, we think that we kind of that people won't judge us as harshly because we're radio. But over the last 3 years, we've just really tried to improve our production values, which is not necessarily more expensive.
But the whole thing about radio always was that you didn't have to have pictures, and now you do. It's a fundamental change, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, that's why we've been talking about fans, not listeners, for 3 years or so now, because our audience don't really care. They just want the content. And you know, Facebook, Twitter, events. That, you know, radio stations do so much more than just making radio. So I think we've got to start to think about the content on those channels, not as secondary, but as primary content.
Okay, was there a question here? Yes.
Hey Sam.
Hi.
I guess when you're generating these ideas, you might in your head be kind of trying to anticipate a reaction from your fans. Are there any reactions that have completely floored you? Like, has there ever been a response to a campaign that you just were not in any way anticipating?
Great question. Something that's really surprised.
Do you mean something that went wrong?
No, not necessarily went wrong.
Okay.
Just that it wasn't the response that you thought you would get. Like, you know.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time debriefing. Like, after every big kind of story arc that we do, we make sure. I think in radio we can move so quickly to the next thing, you know, it's live and you've always got the next show to do. So we really make the effort to stop and debrief things and go, if that worked, why did it work? What was the bit that really connected? And if it didn't work, why didn't it work? And so, you know, our good shows are putting the time and energy into doing their own kind of critical analysis. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question, but...
Was there ever like any kind of press ever pick up on something that maybe that you hadn't seen in your campaign and gone, oh, well, hang on, actually we didn't envisage that side to things, or...
Yeah, look, probably I just can't think of one on the spot, unfortunately. We did one thing with Hamish and Andy called the Ideas Bonanza that was just so bad. I can't really remember why, but we just came up with this idea called the Ideas Bonanza, and I don't even really know what we're trying to do, but afterwards we knew it was bad, and we were able to sit down and realise that we hadn't really planned out how it was going to come up. We thought we had a cool name and just ran with it. So we learned from that.
Don't steal that one.
Yeah.
Yes, raised hand at the back.
If we want to steal the ideas that you stole, where can we find them?
Is your presentation available to?
No, I can't. I haven't really put the presentation online, but I would go to our websites. Dan and Maz is our new drive show. You should all subscribe to their Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Dan and Maz, M-A-Z. And you know, everything that we do is online. Like all our breakfast shows, all our drive shows. If you just check out our websites, it's all there. Yeah.
All for the taking.
It is.
Anybody else before we finish? Any more raised hands?
Do you normally find that you come up with a name first and then make the promotion fit the name?
We have a boss that we work with who loves a pun and usually comes into meetings going, Sunday fun day, what should we do? It's just a name, what's the idea?
Alliteration?
Yeah, alliteration puns. Not really. I mean, usually we're trying to do something and then we come up with the name afterwards. I mean...
that just tells us that radio bosses are the same the world over.
That's true.
Okay, anybody else with a question? Or we'll finish up otherwise.
Just clarify again.
Yeah.
So these are some books that I've stolen a lot from. So if you're interested in creativity, I highly recommend that you grab those books and have a read. There's a lot of great stuff in there.
Sam, are you Irish, by the way, with a name like Cavanagh?
Do you know what I was just saying to my colleague? This is the only country where I don't have to tell people how to spell my name, which is cool.
Absolutely.
I think my great-grandfather was.
Well, you're welcome home.
Good to be here.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you.